Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Gentry, and as some of you may know, I am the co-leader of the Tampa Bay CMTA branch. Tonight, I will serve as the moderator for our discussion on parents, children, and virtual learning, led by CMTA Advisory Board member Sarah Kesty. Inspiring educator, speaker, and author, Sarah helps CMTA members make the best of their children's school experiences. As an experienced advocate who has CMT herself, Sarah helps families navigate school support systems with confidence and clarity. Sarah has been working with individuals who have had a wide range of disabilities for almost 20 years. After Sarah earned 2 teaching credentials, she graduated from Sacramento State with a master's in special education. She has taught children of all ages from kindergarten through high school and has even coached Special Olympics. As a motivational speaker for groups of teachers, parents, and students, Sarah speaks on disability awareness, advocacy, and maximizing life satisfaction. She also writes for several publications, including George Lucas's Edutopia and KQED. Be sure to read the inspiring stories she shares on her website, sarahkesty.com, listen to her podcast, and check out her children's book, Everyone Has Something, Together We Can. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few housekeeping rules. If you'd like to ask a question or share a comment, feel free to do so using the chat feature. Sarah will answer questions at the conclusion of her presentation. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the CMTA website for those wishing to share it with friends and family. Without further ado, let's begin. Sarah, take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. Is it strange to have the same name on this? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop my webcam and get going on our presentation. So if you'll notice, there's going to be captions at the bottom as well, just to reinforce my philosophy of accessibility. So I hope that helps if there's anyone who needs that support. All right, I know that we provided this webinar under the name homeschooling, but I'm going to let you let go of that right now. So oh, there's my face again. You've seen it enough. The difference between what we're doing now and homeschooling is important. So I want to make sure that you really emphasize that it is school from home. It is not homeschooling. And here's what I mean. Distance learning is where the teacher teaches. This is what we're doing during COVID right now, during our shelter in place. Homeschool is where you choose to be the teacher as the parent. Now, this is a really important distinction because I feel like parents have burdened themselves with trying to work full-time from home or trying to hustle and scrape because they're not able to work right now. And then all of a sudden you have to play teacher as well. That's insane. So as much as you can, try to emphasize this in your thinking patterns because teachers are still the primary teachers. So we are delivering lessons sometimes in real time, called synchronous, where it happens at the same time your kid logs in and watches it. And then we're also doing asynchronous, where just today I videoed myself solving some math problems with a lot of think aloud so that my kids could access a lot of strategies. But I just sent them the video and then they can work through it on their own time. So, but my point is, I am the primary instructor. There are some things that you can do to help at home that we're going to talk about. That's why you signed up for the webinar. But the most important thing is if you don't understand a topic or if you're not clear on an assignment, don't spend too much of your own time waiting or trying to figure it out. Rather, access the teacher, figure out their office hours, or have your child contact a peer. You don't have to take on the full-blown teacher role at this time. Okay, so I hope that that just relieves some stress right off the top. Another difference between distance learning and homeschool is the place to ask for help. So with distance learning, your first go is the teacher. You can do email. Some of our students are actually making like video appointments during office hours so we can see their faces and then be able to help them that way. Teachers can set up Google Voice numbers where they can text and chat that way, but it's not their actual cell phone number, so there's still a bit of that homeschool boundary. That's available too. So that's an important distinction because in homeschool, it's really only you, and then there's a homeschool teacher that you kind of check in with once in a while. So I want you to appreciate that difference because that will really help you understand. Like the first time you hit a bump, maybe you can problem solve through it, but if it's taking more than 5-10 minutes, ask a teacher. And it's okay to put an assignment on pause while you wait for the response. Maybe go outside and play, or have your child read, or do a different activity, or a different assignment. That's fine. Okay. Also, we are planning as we go. So homeschool is really planned out ahead of time. You have kind of a curriculum, or at least like a curricular outline. Distance learning, because I was just sharing with the moderator, Sarah, before we got started, I didn't even know that this was going to happen the day that we left school. So I didn't bring home my technology or my curriculum, and we're adjusting as we go. So you have as much flexibility as the schools do, and maybe things will change halfway through. Don't get married to any one thing right now because it's very flexible, which is a good thing. And it's also a source of frustration because it feels like once you know how to do something, things change. So, but really, truly, biggest part about distance learning is the teacher is still the primary instructor. So you don't have to have it all, have your cake and eat it too. You can rely on the teacher. And honestly, the teachers are really interested in being there for the kids because that's our passion and we miss our kids. So please don't rob us of that. Lean on us because we're really here as a spread out learning community. All right. I know that these are tough times and your concerns are very valid, but in this time, I want to challenge you to reframe how you think about this. So instead of thinking about all the negative, about what we can't do, about what we can't get, about the bad hair dye you gave yourself, maybe that's a real example from my life, but we can focus on all of those negative things. Like, I don't get to help my kids like I want to. Some of my kids don't have internet. We could easily put together a huge list, and they're valid concerns. But this is also a really unique opportunity because I'm getting to eat my meals with my loved ones and, well, my husband and my cat. That's why it's plural. I'm getting to test run some ideas that I've wanted to put in place but haven't had time, and learn some new technology. At home, you with your child can actually practice some strategies without that social pressure. So you have an opportunity, let's say maybe, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but I'm too excited to wait. Let's say maybe your child is having a hard time with pencil grip and you wanted to try out some new um, pieces of like squishy tape around it, or a gummy pencil holder, something just as low tech as that, but your kid was feeling a little bit embarrassed. Well, now's the perfect time to try it without the outside, mostly interpretation of judgment, because really kids don't look at each other very much. We're all so worried about what other people think about us that we're not necessarily even considering what other people are doing. But that concern is very real for kids. So right now we can try new things. We can try like new therapies. We can try, hey, you seem to learn better in the late afternoon. Let's start your school then. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of getting to know your child as a learner and their preferences, and then test run some strategies and therapies. And the great thing is, once this is all over, because it will go back to some sense of normalcy at some point, once this is over, you get to share all those insights with next year's teachers and have them utilize those strategies to make school even better for your kid. It's also a unique opportunity because the world is changing. We're learning so much new technology, and a lot of the technology can actually help with physical limitations like we have in CMT. So lots of words on here. I know that's not a great strategy on my part as a presenter, but I hope that it kind of makes it succinct for you. So one of the frustrations I'm hearing parents share with me a lot is that lack of routine. It's like all of a sudden you are responsible for facilitating every minute of every day, and that's a lot on you, especially if you haven't taken any like child development classes. Like, how do you know how to set up a schedule, or what's reasonable to expect? So we're going to talk about scheduling in just a bit, but I want to remind you that part of schedules, part of the backbone of schedules is routine. And honestly, I've had so many parents tell me, like, why is my kid good for you at school? Well, part of that is the expectations that are built into just the setting, but also part of that is some of the routines. So, for example, um, just lining up to walk to the cafeteria. Like, there is a routine for that. Kids know how to do it, they know what's expected, makes them a little bit less anxious and helps make the things go smoother. There are parts of your day that you can add routine to and make your expectations clear. And it's going to sound so cheesy because you've lived with your kid forever. Like, come on. But things are different now. So maybe part of the routine for getting ready for school is, even though they're still home, they get dressed, they brush their teeth, they make themselves a snack. That could be part of the get ready for school routine. Or maybe it's the routine of your work. So your work routine might be you hang a sign on the door that says you can't bother mom. Or one of my friends had to hang a sign that said, if you absolutely have to bother me, you must be wearing clothes. Because sometimes she does video chats with her students and her son has showed up in his underwear a couple times. So but she was very clear with her expectations and she's getting better results because of it. So consider developing those routines, and part of that routine have explicit expectations. These are the steps that we do. And you can just make it kind of a, this is what we do, not this is what I want you to do. You can depersonalize it. And that's one way that teachers do that kind of makes the schedule or the routine the boss and the bad guy, which is really helpful because if your kid doesn't want to do something, you just point to the schedule and say, oh, sorry, it's part of the schedule. The schedule says you have to, and then it takes away that power struggle that you might be in your room with your kids right now, especially because you're kind of stepping into teacher territory. It's weird. You're navigating new roles, all of that. So that's normal for kids to buck against a little bit. All right. We also talked a tiny bit about this, but the clarify boundaries part, if there are times where your kids can't bother you, it's absolutely fine to tell them so. And it's absolutely fine to give them ideas of what they can do instead. So instead of just a clear, no, you may not talk to me, give them options for evaluating their own needs. Like, how bad is it? How bad do you need the help right now? And what else could you do to solve that problem? Because chances are they can probably do something else, like sit outside the door and read a book, or slip me a note under the door, or something to satisfy that urgent need that won't bother you if you're on a call for work. But the idea is to clarify your boundary, but then also provide alternatives so that your kid's not driving you nuts and you're not wasting a whole bunch of time arguing with them. And you know what, honestly, the occasional pop in on a Zoom is pretty darn cute. And I think most employers are enjoying learning about their people as humans. I know it's been really fun to see my coworkers' kids. So food for thought, but I don't think that I'd reinforce that much because otherwise it's going to be the child show and not your work. All right. Create a learning space is huge and so important. And this would be a space where your child goes every day to do his or her school. So instead of being like, hey, go do your English, and then one day he's at the kitchen table and another day he's laying in his bed and then another day he's on the couch, try to create a learning space. And it's okay if you don't have a desk or a space that actually is physically set up right now to play school. That's all right. You could use like painter's tape and tape off an area that this is your learning zone. Um, and really, truly, as part of the learning space and the routines, is you need to delineate between work time and playtime so that the expectations are clear. So when it's work time, when it's learn time, you don't have your phone and you don't have the TV on. And again, you can make the routine and the schedule the bad guy, like, oh, schedule says work time, so put your phone in your backpack, or you can even offer forced choice, like the schedule says no phone. Where do you want to put your phone? In your backpack or on my desk? And do you see that? Like kids feel like they have a choice, like, oh, she's letting me pick, but there's really no choice embedded in that. You're getting your way because your kid's gonna have his phone put away, but at the same time, you're not arguing as much. So part of that learning space would be the expectations in that zone as well. Um, Another thing, I know I mentioned a tiny bit, but the assistive technology. I have a resource at the end that I want to share with you, that's called the Access Notebook, and it has a whole bunch of great resources. But I've been hearing from the CMTA community that some parents are seeing their kids write, and they're very concerned about their handwriting because of some of the muscular degeneration in their hands, or they're shaky or something like that. Um, there are options to have your child speak her answers instead of handwriting onto technology. That is absolutely fine. That's a great idea because shoot, I mean, I'm doing it right now. I'm speaking and the computer's keeping track of it. And it's fairly accurate. So why not go for that if that helps save some of the muscle in their hands for playing later on? Like, why burn it all up on pencil paper stuff? Let's save it for fun and use the technology that's available. Um, I don't know about you, but if your kid is anything like me, they're very stressed right now and sometimes can't fall asleep or can't relax. There are several apps. I listed one right here called the Calm app, but there are lots of apps available to help kind of track your breathing. Like they have the one that like shows the circle going out for breathe in and then in where you close your lungs. And it really helps you slow down breathing, which in turn helps your regulatory system, slows down your heartbeat, slows down that muscle tension, and really helps your brain get back into thinking mode. Because when you're very stressed, your brain really like kind of shuts down a lot of its capacity. It limits what basically dials back from that future thinking, that critical thinking, and brings it back to survival thinking. That's where you're going to get like angry reactions from your kid, or scared reactions, or running away, or trying to hide from a problem. All of that is reflective of very stressed brains going back into that survival mode. So if you can get your kid in a regulated space, that's really going to help, and honest goodness, it's going to help you too. And I know you've probably had those human moments lately where you're reacting not at your best because you're stressed, but it's coming out as either binging on chocolate or yelling at your partner, or any mix of those, maybe both at the same time. That would be awkward. All right. There are also assistive technology components for helping learn to manipulate classroom items like scissors, or holding a paintbrush, or using a mouse. There's a lot of things that you can order online. And again, this is a great opportunity to test them out and see what works for your kid, make them comfortable, maybe even practice some responses. So if your child is worried about being bullied or being questioned about it. So for example, if I had different types of scissors that kind of held on to my hand so I didn't have to move it as much to be able to cut paper, and I'm worried that someone at school is going to make fun of me, well, maybe I can practice saying like, oh, you're jealous of my scissors, or have some sort of comeback that your child is comfortable with, that he's rehearsed a bunch. And that way, if it does happen, and it's probably not going to, but if it does, he's loaded with a response that'll just come right out. So he won't feel so vulnerable. And then if he wants to later on kind of let it out and cry or feel angry, or all those feelings are absolutely valid. But in the moment, if he can respond cool as a cucumber, just own it. Like, this is my thing. So what? Then that's going to shut down bullying, because it's not fun for the bully. And the bully's going to be like, oh, I got to move on to someone who will cry. So this is a great opportunity right now to practice the assistive technology that might help our kids, and then also kind of the social level responses if we feel like they might be made fun of. So if your child gets new braces over this COVID shelter in place time, maybe you can work on like asking your child questions you think other kids would ask, and then have your child rehearse her responses. It's just a great opportunity. All right. The last thing I want to challenge you to consider is asking your child what went right at the very end of the day. I love to close my lessons like this, and it's really fun to get your child to understand what went right in terms of their owning their own learning. So if your child's like, oh, I started with math today and I felt like my brain was like a lot more awake in the morning, and I think I'll do that again. Like, what great insight. And now your child's owning her experience rather than being like a victim of circumstance. So what went right is a great opportunity. And again, you're collecting all of these strategies that work well to support your child, and then you can share them with the next teacher who gets your kid. All right, so I was talking before about how the heck do you set up a schedule? Well, there are some great guidelines on the screen that I'm going to let you read while I take a small drink of water. Hang on. All right, sorry about that. I had a throat tickle. Okay, if you have kids that are in different developmental groups, so let's say you have a preschooler and a middle schooler, it is absolutely fine to chunk out the times of their day a little bit differently, because preschool bodies up till about second grade can focus on one task, interact with one piece of software or something like that for about 20 minutes, and then they need to switch it up. And that's okay. That's reflective of brain and body development, and it's absolutely fine. Middle schoolers, on the other hand, can do 30 to 45-minute blocks before they need a break too. So you can see on the screen that our bodies and brains develop, and so do our attention spans and our total work time per day. If you're chunking a schedule, and what I mean by that is just kind of like half-hour or 20-minute chunks, these are great guidelines to work with. And again, look at this total. There's only 2 hours for the preschool through second grade work time that you really can expect a child to work, especially under these conditions. And that's fine, because your child can read, your child could do art. I'm going to share other ideas with you, so don't panic if you're like, what? I have to work a 6 or 8 hour day. How am I going to only have my kid work for 2 hours? There's lots of other options we can have them do after that time. But as far as paper and pencil or really involved academics, we're looking at 2 hours tops if you're about 7 years old through preschool. I should say backwards to preschool. And by the way, I got ahead of myself a little bit. You'll notice that this says developmental groups. It doesn't say age groups. That's because sometimes our kids present as a little bit younger than they physically are. Again, that's fine. That's where they are, and that is a-okay. So you don't have to use this guide based on, oh, my kid's in 5th grade, he must work 3 hours a day. No way. You know your kid way better than I do. It's absolutely fine. If he's kind of in some gray area in between, then embrace that. These are only guidelines. And it's absolutely fine if your kid needs a couple more years to developmentally catch up with his peers. He will. Absolutely fine. All right. An important distinction for middle school is that social development is crucial. I'm sorry, social time is crucial to their actual development. So when you hit adolescence, about 11 to, I think it ends at about age 22, which is crazy because we're allowed to drive at 16, but our brains aren't done. When you are at about 11 or 12, your brain starts physically needing social time. So your amygdala, which is the center for the big feels, really is like on rapid development, and it is moving and grooving. So all of a sudden your kid that could handle something is bawling about something. Makes sense. That's what's going on in our brain. But the also, the demands for social time are increasing based on brain development, and they are part of adolescence is kind of growing independent of the family, and that is finding their own tribe, finding their connections, and testing out who they are. A lot of that is done through social interactions. So if your middle school to high schooler is having a really hard time right now with the social isolation, it's absolutely valid, and it's worthwhile to see if you can schedule, I hate to call them play dates, but like schedule virtual time for your child to interact even with family. Just make sure that you honor that social time in their schedule, because I just saw a study that said that social isolation, especially the feeling of being left out, registers in the brain in the same spot where physical pain registers, which is so fascinating. So we are programmed biologically to seek others, to love that human connection. I think that's why a lot of us are struggling right now, but it's especially poignant in middle and high school. So make sure that you have that social time in the schedule for your kid. All right, high schoolers can work a little bit more time, and then if you needed some things for them to do, they can work on future-minded activities like doing virtual college tours or working on SAT prep. There's a couple things that you can add into their schedule that will kind of help them have some hope for the future and feel like they're moving forward. Because I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm having Groundhog Day. And events like this, like having a webinar to look forward to, is really nice to kind of break up the monotony. But I'm sure your kids kind of feel like they're on the rat wheel too. So having something to plan for the future might give them a little bit more hope. All right, as you're scheduling or blocking out chunks of time for your kid, please remember to include 60 minutes of physical activity a day. And I know with CMT that can be a hard sell because literally every step I take hurts me. So that balance between sucking up the pain so that I am maintaining my muscle and just giving in to like, oh man, I just gotta sit. Um, that's tricky. But again, this is kind of my opportunity too to try on different like footwear and wrap my toes differently and see what helps me feel better. So I need to practice what I preach and maybe try some of my own assistive stuff. But please make sure your child is getting 60 minutes of physical activity a day. It does matter. And especially the growing body of research for CMT shows that that is crucial for nerve and muscle maintenance. Also, 8 to 11 hours of sleep is what your child needs. In the younger years, they need on the edge of 11 hours, like 9 to 11 through about 5th grade. And then middle and high school can stand to have 8 to 9 hours, but no fewer than 8. And are you feeling a little jealous of that? Because I sure am. And then choice time for about 60 minutes or more. And if you wanted to make it easier for you so that you don't have to like micromanage and facilitate, so you can actually do things at home and your virtual work, you can provide your kids kind of like a menu of choices and then have what they need available to them so that they don't have to bother you like, Mom, can you give me the glue stick? Like, nope. this is on your menu, and look, the glue stick's right there. You're empowered to make this work for you. Okay. Things to consider when you're working on your schedule: make sure you consider meals, wake and sleep time, and if you know what time they have to wake up, you can backwards count how many hours of sleep they need to be able to plan when they have to go to sleep. Work times, and remember, when you develop those work times, you have special expectations for them so that the work times are explicitly described in terms of what's expected. So no phone, you work with a medium-sized voice, whatever you need to describe for your kid. Playtime, social time, exercise, of course, those matter as well. So we were talking about, well, if my kid's 7 or younger, she really can't work for more than about 2 hours, not all at once, but 2 hours total-ish. What is she going to do for the rest of the day? Well, here are some great ideas. So virtual field trips. I know that the Helen Woodward Animal Center does a field trip at, I think, 11 a.m. There are museum tours all around the world. There's PBS. I'm going to let you read while I take another drink. Ankle strengthening, online workouts. And here's a great one. Find a way to help others. I think right now it's easy to lose hope and feel apathetic. But if you can maybe brighten someone else's day, like write letters to loved ones that you know live alone, or even write letters thanking veterans right now. And letters may not go directly there because they probably need to be quarantined for a bit, but just the act of making a difference in someone else's life fills us with dopamine and helps us feel better about our circumstances as well. I know something super cute is kids are making how-to videos on like how to wash your hands, or how to make different art projects. That's a great idea. They can throw them out there. If nobody watches, nah, that's all right. But at least they're doing something productive and feeling like they are making a difference. Specific to CMT when you're planning your homeschool experience is a great time to catch up on rest, and again, kind of monitor like, oh, you got 6 hours of sleep. How do you feel? Well, I feel really bad. I wonder if that means that we should change your bedtime. You know, kind of coach your kid through reflecting on their results could be a great opportunity. I know that when I finally, as an adult, I was probably 33 when I finally gave myself a better bedtime, and I felt like I gained 20 IQ points. Like I could think, I was smarter. So I wish I had coached myself on catching up on rest, but now's the time. Again, we talked about using new strategies without that social judgment or that perceived judgment. Stay active every day because our muscles are use it or lose it. And that's not to imply that you didn't use it if you end up losing it. Like I know I'm losing some function in my left side and I work out like a beast. So some of it just is, it's just going to happen. So that's not an implication of fault, but I do know that I've slowed my progression a lot by exercising. And I know that that's something very important to you to help facilitate for your child. And again, keep notes of what strategies work, share them with school. I love when parents tell me, hey, this really works with my kid. It's like giving me the key to better help a kid. Yes, it's never overstepping. It really, really helps. All right. There have been rumors that special ed is canceled. I know there's a lot of Nancy DeVos is going to schedule or cancel special ed. Oh, Betsy. Why did I call her Nancy? That's strange. See, I have not been paying attention to it because I know that we wouldn't let that happen. So there might be changes to special ed in terms of the waivers. So in special ed, like 504 plans or IEPs, if your child gets one of those, We do have certain timelines that we have to follow in terms of if you request testing, we have to respond within 15 days. We have to sign the assessment plan, and then we have to have the testing done and reviewed within 60 days. Well, clearly I cannot physically test a kid where I have to pass him materials and see how his education's going if I can't physically be there with him. So right now, states and I know the federal government is looking at waiving some of the timeline requirements because we just physically can't do it, and it would put people at risk to try to honor those timelines when we should not be physically close. I mean, I would definitely have to be closer than 6 feet to be able to assess a child's reading or help him through math problems, something like that. The supports in your IEPs and 504s are still active. Teachers are trying to figure out how to facilitate that. So be patient, but not so patient as you become complicit and you let anything go. You know, I mean, speak up if your child's really struggling with a reading assignment, speak up and say, hey, he needs these accommodations. How can I have that happen? And our services might be virtually delivered. So if you have a child that has OT, they might have to do it through video, which may be a little bit tricky and it may be different. It's definitely going to be adjustment for the therapist and your child. So that might be a time where if you know your child has OT scheduled or PT or speech at a certain time, you might want to sit by as backup just in case. That might not be a time where you expect your kid to be independent in the schedule. All right, darlings, you need to remember a few things. First thing is, we understand as teachers. We are not that worried about the academics right now. Yes, they matter. Yes, we want to at least maintain the skills that your child has. But honest to goodness, if all you can do is stay emotionally and physically safe right now, that's a win. So we really truly understand as teachers, and we understand that so many factors go into the family stress level and the ability to have internet or not, all of those things. So please be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't think that the teachers are judging you. We're having a hard time too. Your child will catch up, by the way. Like, he probably will fall a little bit behind. Like, she probably will forget how to do long division if she doesn't practice once in a while. But let's be honest, you probably forgot how to do long division too. And good thing we have YouTube because you can catch right up. And that is fine. Your kid will be okay. And next school year, it's not like your kid's going to be the only one who is sheltered in place and then everybody else has advanced. We're all going to be backtracking and kind of filling holes and then moving on. And you are enough. You are doing your best. You showed up to this webinar. It is absolutely okay to just have a day sometimes. And sometimes it's going to be very productive, and other days you're going to barely make it through 3 meals, and that is fine. You are enough. You are doing your best, and we recognize that as teachers and as the CMT community. If you need me, I am available at my website or my email, or you can check out my podcast where I share executive function tips, which executive function is like organization, self-management, attention, you know, all the secret sauce that makes you successful that nobody teaches you. I teach you there. And then my friend Karen has a great access notebook that I was telling you about. So it's at bit.ly/access notebook. And inside of there, there's a ton of assistive technology ideas to help your child access things better, like kind of take those impediments out of the way. So that is it from me. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you walk away feeling full of hope and lots of love, and you are enough. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. Did anyone have any questions for Sarah? We'll wait just a couple seconds for folks to submit any questions.
Well, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know, or maybe you'll go back through these ideas and say, hey, wait a minute, what did she say? And then that's when you can email me and I'll help catch you up.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sarah, for helping us understand the importance of reframing our thoughts, understand the valid, real concerns and the unique opportunity that we are currently in. We can test run strategies, we can spend more time together, we can look at routines, schedules, learning spaces, and these assistive technology tools. I myself was really amazed by the captioning and things that you were bringing up. So this is our time to shine and really take a further look into that. So understanding we're enough, and thank you so much. Tonight was wonderful, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Please stay safe.
Bye.